One of the trickiest things to do is convincing people of your why on a joint offer if you haven't yet got a social object. Well, I'm going to teach you about something that I learned from a strategic consulting firm that we put to use in our partnerships when we were doing co-sales with new partners. It's called an artifact of the future. It answers the following questions. If someone isn't really excited yet, they probably don't understand your why that underpins the joint offer. There's a lot of excitement of a strategic big company working with someone young, cutting edge in their early part of their journey. So what happens if that excitement doesn't fucking land? Well, they'll probably ask you questions like, what are you up to again? And what does this mean for me? If you're getting meetings booked in your co-sell and you're getting those types of questions, it's not just your counterpart isn't good at selling. It might just be your why isn't really fucking clear enough. So what we did is we found that, we went to look at people who do these huge deals that convince people of these ridiculous things that really don't do anything. So we went and looked at how McKinsey gets customers and new prospects to buy. And one of the things we came across was something called an artifact of the future. So what these cheeky buggers do is that they interview your team and they create this future state. And then within the future state, they create a contextual piece of content. And that contextual piece of content is sometimes physical, as in it could be a digital object, like you could touch it, it's a prototype, or it could just be actually a really well-designed piece of content. Like a future newspaper, for example, or a future headline and a news article underneath it, or even a future media release. That's a fucking classic. Isn't really that cool, but sort of works every time. Now, the cool thing about the artifact of the future is these guys don't have any unfair advantages other than being really smart, and there's groups of them and they charge a really high fee. Maybe data, I don't know. I don't think they're that cool on it, but they get these huge deals. So we said, well, they're really good at explaining a why when they have nothing. What if we were to use the same thing when we have something? So we worked with our partners to produce an artifact of the future for our clients and presented them at the end of our vision pitch, generally on our first meeting. And what the great thing about an artifact of the future is it's tangible, it's illustrating change, and it's their favorite medium. For Ernst & Young, when we were selling to government customers, the artifact of the future that we created was the future state of the government workforce. One thing that Ernst & Young pulled out about our unfair advantage is that it could be a reskilling product. One of the biggest challenges that our customer was facing is they needed to go through a technical transformation, rely on talent, but they were really worried about getting their workforce there. They couldn't do it with the tools that they had, and they were terrified of the public service, government service unions. We created, hey, this is what your workforce will look like if you reskill them, and here's how many less consultants you need. Now that might be crazy when you think about Ernst & Young as a consulting firm and grows by billing more seats, but not if you realize that Ernst & Young's goal was to have all the seats, even though there'd be less of them, because they were last in and they were an emerging market player. So by saying that, hey, here's our future reskilling workforce, you actually need a lot less teams. And even though external consultants, even though Ernst & Young will hopefully be your best provider because we've helped you through this change, you need less of us, was sort of super fucking empowering. And by crafting that into a message that was released by the government and then was well received and repeated by other federal governments globally, and we did like 2 or 3 announcements. The Australian government did it, the British government did it, but it was all based off the Canadian government. We tapped into a huge context that our customers and dialogue were having. And they were having a dialogue about how they could be one of the best digital governments in the world. And how do we do it with less money and less resources? A huge reskilling initiative done that. And saying that you need less consultants was the icing on the fucking cake. Because the one thing the government hates more than everyone else are these consultants that get paid 4 or 5 times what they do to do pretty much exactly the same job and never deliver any project on time. That artifact of the future, the Canadian government launches its largest reskill workforce and depletes its need on consultants, followed by, hey, is how the UK and Australian sort of government have adopted the Canadian model, worked fucking gangbusters to show our client the position Ernst & Young was seeking, the value that they wanted to create, and why our company was so important based off its horizontal IQ testing being our unfair advantage and being applied to reskill. Really, really complex narratives all coming together in nice, tangible pictures illustrating change on their favorite medium. Now, you know I don't like those value extractors, but this is the one time a place like McKinsey has nailed it, except they've done it with really nothing exciting. So next time you're struggling to get past the questions of what are you up to again and what does this mean for me, usually when you start engaging the early majority in your co-sell model, try using an artifact of the future to encapsulate your partnership narrative and the effect it could have on you and your positions and the value that it could create for its clients under a 5 to 10 year time horizon.